Okay. Welcome back to the Inspired Idiot Show. Welcome, Alecia. First time on the show.
Thank you. I'm excited.
Yeah, me too. I basically, to kind of give you just some context on like what this is all about, I make this show for people who feel like inspired idiots. And to me, anybody who's ever been successful is an inspired idiot who just didn't quit. So I really like to make content for the people who really feel like they're in that inspired idiots stage where they're like, I want to build my, unrealistic life. I really have no idea how to get there, but I'm committed to figuring it out. And I really like to talk to people who, in some way, have or are building their, unrealistic life and just kind of get you to share that messy journey and, how you serve people and just kind of help people who feel like an inspired idiot keep taking that next step. So I'm going to ask you some very curious, maybe like taboo questions about your journey and your business if you're down to have that conversation with me.
Yeah, honestly, I'm an open book. I'm very excited for this. Normally, I'm the one asking questions and holding space. So I was actually looking forward to just like having that flipped around. And I know you're going to ask really fun, interesting questions. And so I'm excited to see where this goes.
Nice. Okay. I love to hear that. So the first thing, like I know I had texted you this, but the first thing I always like to ask people is if you had to explain to a sixth grader what you do, what would you say?
I texted you about how it's like turning your deepest calling into a profitable, thriving business. And then if a sixth grade didn't know calling, then it would be like passion maybe for them.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
That's cool. So I remember when we had first met, I remember somebody asking you what you did, and you had said that you were like a branding consultant. You help people with branding. And then I remember the second time we hung out, we had this conversation. I remember you saying that a lot of branding work is very like kind of surface level, and you really like to do, I think you'd said, the deep work with your clients. So can you tell me what that actually means? Like, what problem do clients seek you out to help them with?
Yeah, I love this. So, my work actually began in like trauma healing based work. So, I really love that. And as I progressed and as my clients were getting better and better results, it kind of shifted into the entrepreneur brand and business development stuff. Whereas like the trauma healing was more of this like maybe like bottom layer stuff we're working on. And I kind of got bored of that and I was like, I want to work on like the ceiling, these upper level problems that people are facing. And that's kind of how it naturally progressed there. And so when you're building a brand and when you have this calling inside of you, it can feel, I think, pretty scary and pretty risky to go after it. And so the strategy will only get you so far if you have mindset blocks, things in your subconscious sabotaging you, or even like past patterns or trauma from the past that is inhibiting you to become this version of yourself that you need to be to have that brand and actualize these results.
Yeah, that reminds me of the book The Big Leap. I think that we had talked about it before, that that's what introduced me to the concept of an upper limit. And I remember as I was reading that book, I kept having these thoughts of like, oh, I've seen this like everywhere. Like
Mm.
you see it in celebrity stories, but I've also seen it in myself where like basically for anybody who's not familiar with the concept of an upper limit, what I took from that book was that a lot of us have these kind of subconscious beliefs and stories that we tell ourselves that we're not even always aware of, and we sometimes think that life can only be so good before it's like too good, and then we often do something to kind of sabotage ourselves. So did you like, have you found that that is a really common thing that you work on with your clients, and then that it kind of like almost ties that trauma healing expertise into it, or what does that usually look like for working with your clients?
Yeah, I actually had a great example of this morning that I can share. So before this, I was watching the Call Her Daddy podcast and Victoria Beckham was on and I was watching and then I just like had this moment with myself where I was like, whoa, like one day I could be on that podcast. And then it's interesting to watch like the thoughts rush in right after that of, oh no, not me. God, who do I need to become to do that? That's scary, and this is very human, these types of thoughts to happen. And I think it's all about training ourselves to like listen to the first thought and like don't let the second wave thoughts like stop you because we are human. It's going to naturally happen. The fear doesn't go away, but which voice inside of you are you listening to? And so I thought that was very interesting to just observe myself, have that thing. And it happens so quickly, right? Within like seconds, just boom, 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 these different layers of our programming. And so, yeah, that's what made me think of it.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that being an entrepreneur kind of forces you to become a very self-reflective person. So you kind of start getting like I have a lot of those similar thoughts of like, oh, that's interesting. I just caught myself
Mm-hmm.
having this same thought. So going back to the work that you do with your clients, what do you find is like a very common problem people have when they first like start working with you or seek you out?
I think it's around how to communicate their specific genius, because when we're talking about like a deepest calling, it's not necessarily like something that exists in the world yet. It might not have a label or like a title to it, or it might be like something a little out there that no one's heard of. And so there isn't like a path paved to do that. And so it's like, let's find the words and the visuals that communicate very clearly this thing that you're doing, so that when you go and start sharing and talking about it, it really lands with the right people. So that's like a big piece of it. And then the second piece is often like the sales process of this skill set that they have. So it's like, now you know how to talk about with confidence the thing that you're doing. And now let's build the confidence around selling it. And my favorite way is the top down method. So starting at premium pricing, and then you can build the business model around that. But of course, I work with my clients in whatever business model they want to create, but that's just my favorite way.
And that's called the you called it the top tier method?
Top down.
Okay.
Yeah, top down. You hear it a lot in the corporate world, like decisions are made top down or pricing structures like top down. I
Mm.
really like to get people into healthy cash flow, and often premium pricing is a very quick way to do that, so they can put money into the business and then start using it to build not only like safety in their nervous system, but also like the ability to invest back in and keep growing this thing.
Right. Okay. So for anybody who is not familiar with what the top down means, how would you explain that?
Starting at the, because a lot of the, this is like another thing. So I'm building a brand called Rebel Rising. For me, it's like I rebel against what a lot of like the conventional methods are, and you'll hear a lot like start with volume, start with low ticket, and build your business around that. But if you don't have a big audience, a big community, and you're trying to sell, say, like a $97 product, it's really hard to take care of your life on $97 sales, right? And so it makes more sense to me to start selling, say, like if they have the experience and they have the confidence around their skill set, then it's like, let's start at 25K. Let's get in a few clients, get you into really good cash flow. And then from there, we can start growing, right? Because three sales is 75K. And if you're selling a $97 product, that's $300. It's like a huge difference, right?
Hmm. So do you have any kind of like criteria that you look for in helping a client? Because it sounds like a lot of what you do is you really help this person get a lot of clarity around what they want to do and building an offer around it. So I can imagine that for you, it might you might sometimes run into people that you realize like I don't actually think that there is a good offer here. So like how do you I guess do you have certain criteria that you look for in somebody that you'll take on as a client?
Yeah, it's often like how many years experience they have, because I found if they're too beginner, it's like drinking out of a fire hose with me and my partner Troy, like it's just too much for them. And so my other types of offerings like courses and things are better for that type of person, but in the one-to-one space, it's like they have 10 plus years experience, usually 15 to 25, to be honest. And if I think about it, they've really actually grown their business in this kind of like old way. And things have changed so much these days with the internet blowing up, social media, marketing changing, offers, the way this is all being received. So I'm really helping them like upgrade how they think about showing up. And then we kind of take that to market and I help them get results. And for each person, they have a different, what I call kind of like pool of resources per se. So, say I have a 25 years experienced men's coach. That was one of my clients. He has, and he's like 52 or something like that. He has 52 years of a network to pull off of, right? So that was like his pool of resources to go after. And so he was even saying, oh, I need to post more content. And I'm like, actually, you don't. You need to go connect with your network of multimillionaires and talk with these people. And that actually made him into this like 25K pay in full magnet. Like he was just closing deals fast, right? Whereas, like another client, he's a talent recruiter, and for him, it was like these job websites were his pool of resources. It's like, let's spend most of your time there networking and building connections and getting clients that way. And he was able to build a multi six figure business by focusing on that.
Okay, okay, gotcha. So if I could totally see that then. So if you're working with people who have been in their own business in some capacity for 10 plus years, it's very likely that that person, they might not have their authentic offer crafted out yet, but you know that they're committed to their business. They've probably had experience of, serving people and getting clients. And it is very likely, if they've been doing it for 10 plus years, that they probably are still following some outdated methods of marketing themselves.
Yeah, if I think about the second client, he also had 10 plus years experience and he had his offer going, but he was selling it for $2,500 on these extended payment plans. And then people would default and stop paying, and he would actually never end up getting that full amount often.
Mm.
And so I helped him rework it. And there was also like 12 months of onboarding with that, which is crazy. So I helped him refine it down and realize where's his genius in this, what's going to get the best results for his clients, and also higher value so he can charge more money. And so over the time, like we've worked together for a long time, we've slowly like built this thing up. And his first leap was from 2,500 to selling at 5K. That was going really well. He raised it to 12,000, and now he's getting like 50,000 plus pay in fulls for the same service that we've just refined to one, communicate it better, a cleaner sales process, and owning this premium high ticket pricing and having that confidence behind it.
So he went from offering something for 2,500 to offering it to 50K, and it sounds like, I'm sure you said there was some refinement in there, but he didn't like completely rebrand and start offering something new. He just got a lot clearer on what that offer was.
Yeah, we got a lot clearer on the offer, and we had to do, coming back to like the internal workings, the deep work, we had to do a lot of sort of reprogramming around past stuff. Like, I don't want to go into specifics because obviously it's pretty private, but there's some childhood stuff we go through, there's some past business failures and pains that cause like fear of like moving forward or operating differently. And then even the way he was leading his team and himself inside the business as a CEO, like really refining that process. So there's quite a lot that goes into it, but yeah, this all kind of adds up to these results sort of landing for them.
Yeah, and that was one of the reasons why I was interested in talking with you, because I appreciate that I get really interested in like when people have offers around like, doing that deep work with their clients and trauma healing and those types of topics. But I also appreciate that you seem to focus on like the tactical side of things too, like the actual marketing strategy and the branding, and you bring your partner Troy into it, who's very deep in the marketing world. And something that I thought of, a lot of coaching offers to me sometimes feel very vague, in
Hmm.
that like I've had a few coaches that I've been interested in their work and they seemed really passionate about what they do, but it wasn't super clear to me like what I was actually going to get out of working with them. And
Hmm.
then sometimes they would hit me with these like $4,000 to $7,000 prices, and I'd be like, wait, what am I even buying?
Hmm.
So, do you think that that is like a me thing, or do you think that's a offer clarity thing?
Well, the first thing I thought of was like kind of I just met you like this summer, so like briefly in what I've gathered from you, it's like I think you would value something very clear and like communicated well. So that would be the first red flag for you. It's like, wait a minute, what am I buying? Because this is kind of similar to the things you help people with too, right? And so that would be kind of feel off internally, I bet. But obviously, I don't know these offers. I can't speak to what they're selling, but I think a lot of people, I've been in the game a long time, to be honest. Like, I've been online since like 2010, traveling the world since 2016. I've seen a lot of people come and go. I've seen the industry change a lot. And there's a lot of people that are very good at marketing and selling, but what I've spent my career on is like delivery, mostly like really focus on honing on delivering a high quality result to my client and making sure that I could own that. And then I put the other stuff on like later. Like I got better at the other stuff later, right? I would say even till now, I'm just like really working on refining that. And so it's hard out there. I get that. Like you don't know what you're buying, who you're buying it from. And I think our intuition is getting stronger these days and our radar goes off quicker of like I might like this person, something about them is attractive to me, but this doesn't feel clear or I don't fully understand what it is they're selling, and it's like really trusting that. And I think as a customer, as a buyer, it's like owning that, right? Like this feels off, why? You can ask more questions to them, but it's like not just buying something because you liked the person. I don't know if that
Yeah, it does. And I think that that's actually I'm glad that you made that point because I see so much content today about people talking about personal brands. And I think there is kind of like I what am I trying to say here? I see a lot of creators online putting out offers where I do think that that's what happened is they've done a really good job at creating a personal brand and making people like them and want to follow their story. And there are those people that will buy from somebody just because they're like, oh, I resonate with this person, or there's something about this person that I think I want to be. But I do agree with you that I think people are being sold to more than ever. And so people have a bit more guards up now in terms of like, okay, but what am I actually getting out of this? Like what is the result that I can expect? And that actually leads me to another question that I wanted to ask you because like do you find that when your clients come to you, they come to you with like specific income goals or like I guess how do you measure success for a client when it's not tied to revenue?
That is kind of tricky because, I trained with like the Dan Kennedys of the world and these like OG, like Wyatt Wood Small, like the people who've trained the icons that we know today, like Tony Robbins and stuff. I'm always like, who trained that person? I want to go as far back down the line as I can to get like the purest form of the information. Now I forget what I was going to say with that. It is a good point though, but now I forget. What was your question again?
I had asked, like, do you find that a lot of clients come to you with income goals, and how do you measure success for a client if it's not tied to revenue?
Yes. Okay, that's why I was saying that. So like the Dan Kennedys of the world, they kind of teach us it's like we're selling money at a discount basically. And it is a great way to quantify things. And it's interesting in my trauma healing work, I did struggle with this a lot because it's the intangibles. And, we can't always put like a quantifiable thing on that. You're going to feel different. And I know how important that is. So honestly, I don't know if I have a great answer for this, but the adding the money stuff in honestly made it a lot easier for me. I like this stuff. I like numbers. I like a certain amount of the tactics and then pulling in this deeper work that actually brings like the sustained results where they hold it for a long time. Not saying it's the best way to do things, and there's certainly a lot of transformations that go on inside of the container, but honestly is we live in a capitalistic world right now, and money is a pretty simple way to quantify things. It's like, yeah, you got a 20x return on your investment. That's insane. Like, I love that for you. And then it makes them feel good and it's easy for them to continue being a client. So it might not be the answer you want, but it's kind of the truth.
No, that is exactly what I want. Is just like the honest truth because I agree with you. I think like when I think about or let me rephrase this. I think some of my curiosities about the business side of coaching is like how do you define what success looks like when that sometimes is a little bit hard to define? And, how do you even like find clients for something that sometimes is a little hard to define? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I did really struggle with that in the trauma healing in the beginnings of my career because again, it's so intangible. And I pulled so much from my story and I had to share it felt like I had to share like such deep and private parts of myself, which I didn't mind because it I study a lot of human design as well and it really kind of aligned with that, so I was fine, but it got to a point where it was like, well, what is mine, like everything I feel like is just becoming part of like the marketing, and it's like I learned to start creating a few more boundaries and like sharing things when I was actually ready to, and so that was an interesting process. But I try to communicate in my content now to share the value that like they're both as valuable, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Like the intangibles are just as valuable as the like tangibles, and you kind of need them both and to put value and meaning into both, right? Because once you get to a money goal, say when I help my clients get to a money goal, it's like, well, we realize there's just another goal beyond that. But like, who are you inside in that moment? How do you feel? Do you actually feel different? And often they do feel incredibly different. And we actually take some time to like reflect on that and honor that and be like, holy effing shit, like you felt like this before and now you're over here, and like that's like a totally different lifetime now, and like how amazing is that? And it's like, now who do you want to become, and like what kind of income are we driving towards? So yeah.
Yeah, no, like I said, that was a big part of the reason why I wanted to have this conversation with you, because I like that you focus on both sides of things, and I relate to the fact that you do like to have like numbers and be able to show your client like, this is the return you got on the investment. I think that that's just like I think part of the way that I do business is I always want to kind of make it feel like a no-brainer for my clients that I'm bringing them value. Otherwise, I feel like I could probably be doing a better job. But that something you said there reminded me of something that my ghostwriting mentor, Dakota Robertson, I remember him saying this in an interview. He had said that, there's so many people out there being like mindset coaches and stuff like that. And he said, personally, I wouldn't go hire somebody who's a mindset coach. I would hire somebody who has accomplished something that I want to do. Like, they've built a successful business, and I'd get them to mentor me on mindset. And it kind of brought up this question for me. And I'd be curious to get your take on this. Sorry. Do you think that coaches should only teach what they have personally accomplished?
It's a big topic, and I've seen this a lot around. I think embodiment is so important, like having embodied the results. My truth is that I think people like the coach or the entrepreneur, I think in our mind, we feel like we need to be like 100+ steps ahead. And you actually don't need to be that far ahead to help people. Like, you just need to be at least a few steps ahead, right?
Mhm.
And you can help people. And so that's kind of my thought on it, is we all are going through lessons and experience every day, every week, every month, every year. And you have something to share and give back to people, like whether it's in your industry or if it can go across industries, and there's value in that. But I definitely don't agree with, trying to sell something that you just read on the internet once and were like, "Ooh, I like that. I'm going to do that." And it's like, but you really have your hands haven't been in the clay and in the mud. I don't think that's beneficial to anybody.
Yeah, that's similar to how I think about it, and I honestly I'm open to other people's perspectives on this. Like I spoke to another coach I know who thinks about it differently, and she when she was explaining it to me, she used the example of the F1 driver Lewis Hamilton, is that his name? I think
Mm,
so. And I guess he's famously known for having a coach that has helped him win many titles, but she herself has never won an F1 title. And
mm,
so her kind of stance here was a good coach doesn't necessarily have to have accomplished the thing they're helping you accomplish, but they do need to have knowledge and an experience that's going to help them help you get there. The thing that I've often thought, like for me, it's hard for me to trust somebody who says, they can help me hit consistent 30K months if they themselves have never done it.
Hmm. Yeah. No, definitely. And I can see where that other person's coming from. That to be an F1 coach, I mean, I guess that is all about the mental and different things. I don't know what they're coaching them on, but I mean, I can see where they're coming from as well. I just think like in the online world, in this like make money online space, it gets like taken advantage of a little too much, I think. And but like in the real world, there's I think a lot more applications for it that are actually like, integral. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I would agree with that. So for you, like how did this you basically I know you said you've been online since 2010 and then you got into brand or no, you said you got into trauma healing and then to branding. So how did those all kind of connect for you? I guess like what took you from doing kind of what people think of when they hear branding work, which I think a lot of people think of like websites and getting your messaging right and the example that you used of like making sure your font accurately represents your business. How did you shift from doing that kind of aesthetic work to the way that you serve your clients now?
So I've never done like the graphics and that side of things for people. For me, I'm really passionate and obsessed with like more of the like structural elements of a business. So the things that actually make it work, the things that actually make it money and allow it to move forward and all of that. And so for me, like what's more important and what I've always been more passionate about is like being able to activate my client's voice in a way that everything else just kind of starts working and you don't really need to have it perfect. Like, because once they're tapped into the energy and the conviction of what their mission is, where they're going, what they're selling, who they are, and who it's for, and all of that, and the price points, and they just lead with that energy, that honestly moves mountains. And it's like, yeah, we could tinker around here and find the perfect fonts and the perfect color theory. There is value in that for certain types of brands, but generally the people that I work with, they're like into leadership, they're into visionary, they're into just like personal development, and I don't know, they have some kind of voice that they want to share beyond even a business. And that voice like moves the mountains. And whether that's like through writing, through their art, through whatever medium they're using. And this has always worked the best for me. And I guess I attract people that also kind of resonate with that style. So yeah.
I've always kind of thought like when you are a coach of some kind and you're taking on people who are running different types of businesses and at different levels in their businesses, I imagine that you as the coach and maybe this is just something that you get better at in time, but I imagine that kind of requires you to get very like even just like energetically involved in this person's business. So how do you manage that as a coach when you have different clients with different businesses and different problems? Do you find that you have like a certain kind of structure that you follow with all your clients, or you have a process that you take them through? Like, what does that look like for somebody who would potentially bring you on and work with you?
Yeah, so I have a very clear starting process for all my like high level one-to-one clients. And I actually do focus on a lot of the structural and like the tactics strategies out of the gate because I want to clean up everything that hasn't been working or slowing them down as fast as possible. Get quick wins out of the gate so they can start to feel like what it will feel like to be this new version of themselves. And then once the results start landing from that, then it's like we do some tweaks and things, and then we can do the deeper inner work. I don't actually like to start with the deeper inner work. I think to me, I haven't seen that work as effectively. I'd rather go out of the gate with these, like the strategy, which might be surprising to people who know me, but I really love it. I'm like, let's go in, like, let's excavate, let's activate, let's re strategize all of this, clean it all up. And then I kind of just like let them go, take it, and like start to like almost like put it on and embody it like a shirt or something, because it's like all this new stuff they have to practice like operating as this new type of person, right? And so that's when we bring in the mindset tweaks, the healing, the trauma stuff that comes up when they hit like an edge. And then it's kind of just like a repeating of that. It's like, okay, we've gotten to this place. Who are you now? What do we need to tweak? And, kind of just keep going like that.
Yeah, that makes sense to me because it you would like to me it would make sense to really like look at what a person's doing, look at like maybe the loose ends in their business or what's not working, and then as you work on kind of cleaning that up with them, you probably will naturally run into points of resistance with them.
Mhm.
So then you get into that kind of deeper work of like, okay, well, this is what you said you wanted to do, so where is this resistance coming from? Interesting. Okay.
Mhm.
So when you, I know that this is probably like vastly different for all your different clients, but when you first are looking at somebody's business and you're saying like there's often things that you need to clean up, what does that usually look like? Is it like them being really inconsistent with their messaging, or like what would be some common things that you are helping somebody clean up in those first stages?
I think like the stable point in any business, because obviously a business is meant to make money, is the offer. What are you selling? How are you selling it? What's the price point? So I honestly come back to that first before anything. And so once we can get that stable point figured out, often they're undercharging, often they're working with annoying clients, often they're overworked and stretched too thin because of both of those things and other like time issues. So I really love to start there and clean it all up. And then Troy and I've been realizing, even just like recently, that I'm like such a big picture, big vision person. So when they start, on our first call, I just get them almost, it's almost like a podcast. I'm just like, tell me everything, tell me about your childhood, tell me about your business experience, where do you want to go? And I'm just taking notes and like kind of receiving or absorbing all of this. And then we come back the next call and I'm like, strategy, let's go, like clean it all up. And then I come with like a vision. And I see obviously if they like it and if they align with it, and then we kind of go. But I tap them into a higher version of what they see for themselves. Or if they already see themselves in this big, big way, I just kind of show them like how it's possible to get there more efficiently.
Do you find that, because I know you said a lot of your clients have been, in business for 10 plus years, do you find that undercharging is a really common thing for people?
So common. It's crazy.
Why do you think that is, especially if these are people that, they didn't just start their brand yesterday?
Yeah. So I think we all have this like innate, super subtle, like layers of people pleasing and wanting to belong and being feared of being outcasted from the clan, like the tribe, and these like really deep, like biological things. And premium pricing, I have found, really hits on that edge for people in a big, big way. So they think, well, I can get 2,500 for this, so that's good, That's and what you see online often, this makes me so mad, but like people are saying like $3,000 is high ticket, and I'm like, oh my god, you guys are crazy. That's like not that much money, especially if they've been in business for 20 years. It's like you are the one that needs to charge 25K, 50K, 100 plus K, like 500K even. Like I haven't sold that with a client yet, but I know I could. Like, and so yeah, this is like my passion about all this.
Yeah, it does seem wild, like for somebody to be in business that long and still feel like it's almost, I'm sure it becomes like a comfort zone for some people. Like they're like, I know I can sell this offer at this price point, so I'm going to keep selling it at this price point. It probably is for some people like an upper limit, going back to what we had said before.
Upper limit. And you just made me realize too, it's this big like rejection thing, fear of rejection. Because you are going to get a lot more rejection when you start charging higher numbers, but you only need a few yeses to make it very, successful. Yeah.
I'm curious, have you found like when you are helping people with these types of things, whether it's like refining their offer or being comfortable charging more, like to me, I've always been of the belief that if you're very confident in what you offer and that you're confident in the results that you provide the people you serve, you're confident in the value that you provide, that it becomes easier to charge higher. So do you ever run into clients that the offer just isn't strong enough because they aren't providing good enough results? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I'm thinking about like use cases of this, and you would think that's the case. Like having all that confidence makes it easier to charge a higher ticket price, but I haven't found that to be the case. It's almost like this like energy of like best kept secret vibes. where I think we all go through this. I've even witnessed this within my own self. It's like, you know, you're good. You know, you can get the result. You know, you're like one of the best in the game at this thing, but still you're like hiding a bit and like playing into this like best kept secret vibe of like, but like, I'll just tinker over here and like keep doing my thing, like doing the thing they've been always doing, which has gotten them that result that they, you know, have at that moment, which is usually like a lower result than they want. And so this is again where the deep work comes in. Like, I don't know, you might not think about charging a higher number, or like, I think some people think you can just be like, I'm going to charge 50K and just do it. But honestly, there's a lot of deep work that goes into this. And to hold that sales conversation and not fidget and not like squirm inside and like mess it all up is actually kind of challenging if you've never done it, right? So these are things that I teach my clients and show them how to do, is like, you know, be a good leader and like know how to communicate this, have a really clean sales process that allows for rejection and it allows for the onboarding of amazing clients, you know, and communicating that number without like squirming or like, I don't know, like squeaking your voice or something. Like all these little things like play a big role, because like if you're on a sales call and you're like, that'll be 50K, they're gonna be like, the person will be like, that felt really weird. Like, oh, the instant no, right?
Yeah. I mean, people, we've probably all heard the saying that, selling in business is a transfer of emotion.
Yeah.
So it totally makes sense to me. And I think this topic of trauma healing and deep work and even terms like mindset, I've seen that there are a lot of people in business that kind of just think like that stuff isn't valuable in the same way. It's fluffy, just fuck your feelings, do the work kind of thing. And I do think that there is, like we've been talking about, I think there needs to be a balance of strategy and numbers. But I do think that entrepreneurship is like the most epic self discovery journey that we can go on, at least one of them. And I think that self sabotage is extremely common, but it looks very different for different people. And I've
Mm-hmm.
seen a lot of people, especially in those first few years of business, who will self sabotage, and they do it in all kinds of unique ways. Like I got started in business doing a business coaching program, and I've seen a lot of other people come into that program after me. And I've seen some people who I could just kind of tell, like right from the beginning, were self sabotaging just because of the mindset that they were carrying. They had a more than a like, how can I make this work mindset? They had a this better work mindset, and they
Mm-hmm.
brought that into it with them. So then, when they get that first rejection or they have the first week where things are feeling really hard, they kind of just convince themselves this isn't working for me and they quit. And I look at that and I just think, no, you just convinced yourself that you needed to give up. You self-sabotaged.
Yeah, it's true. This is again why I have a challenge like working with beginners, because like I've been throwing myself at life from a very young age. Like I moved out at 15 and I've just been facing adversity and being called crazy and challenges and failure for so long that I just now understand like it's all just a part of it and it doesn't stop me. And like I don't think I have the like capacity anymore to like hold space for someone that's like so far back, right? And
Mm-hmm.
there, I think there's other people out there that can do that. And like, I've always kind of felt this way. So yeah, it's like, that's why I like these people who have much more experience, because they've been through the highs and the lows and the dips, and they've experienced a lot more of that, and they've built a thicker skin, and they now know they're in it for the long haul, and it's like, okay, now let's get to work and like let's build something truly incredible.
Yeah. And I think, like, going back to our previous point, I think that people who believe that mindset and doing that deep work isn't necessary, I would imagine people who have that belief probably, this might be a very big guess, but I would guess that they haven't really drastically scaled their business to the point that they want it to. Because I think the deeper that you get and the more committed you become to your business, the more mindset work you ultimately end up doing.
Definitely. Every single day, to be honest. It's a daily thing. It never ends. And the more success you get, you know, it just gets more nuanced and subtle, the things that you tweak to get more results. And I always found that interesting, like the different stages and the different ways we try to sabotage. And the interesting thing though is that like 95% of our awareness is subconscious, and we ourselves can't even really see what we're doing and how we're operating in patterns and things. And that's why it is amazing to have like a coach and like even a good partner to help you see when you're either dipping back into an old pattern or starting to do something weird. And they can just like show you that, hopefully lovingly, and you can be like, oh yeah, just like get back on path.
Yeah, I mean, I think your story of having that one client that you took from, he had a $2,500 offer, and then with some tweaks and coaching and refinement, that's now a $50,000 offer. Like that's an amazing transformation. And I would guess that probably a lot of the work there, correct me if I'm wrong, I would guess that a lot of the work there was probably that deeper work because I mean, it's one thing to teach somebody a strategy and to say, okay, here are the reasons why you could be charging more for this offer. Like, here are the numbers. But then, like you said, that person has to feel conviction and like honestly feel like, yes, I can sell this for 50K. It's worth 50K. So there probably is more of that like deep mindset work that has to go into that transformation.
Yeah, it's true. I've always believed like the 80-20 of this is 20% is the strategy, 80% is your energy and your mind and all of this inner stuff. And so you do, I believe, need a really clean and a really solid strategy. But it's like once you have that, now let's work on the energetics and the mindset so you can maintain and hold this. Because otherwise, again, we'll just get squirrely and then get shiny object syndrome, or go over here, go over there, listen to every freaking voice and guru online, and it's just like too much, right? It's like lock in, focus, like from the inside out. I always say, like, this is what's more important.
I feel like I have so many thoughts in my head right now.
Wow.
So, if you were looking back, like you've been kind of on your own, figuring out life, learning about business for many years now. If you could look back, what is something that you used to believe about success that you don't believe anymore?
It's a great question. I'm trying to think. Nothing's really coming up, but I guess what I feel like comes with, I guess, a bit of maturity and experience now is I just started writing a little series about this too, where it was like I was a good student. I listened to all my coaches. I did what they told me. I even got good results, but it still felt off inside because I wasn't fully honoring what I felt was like my truth and how I wanted to do things. And I feel like now more than ever, I can see that and like own that and be like, I trust my way, I trust my truth, and like really, and I think a lot of my clients are quite similar. We're like sensitive in the sense of like feeling. We a lot of our gifts are about like holding space and like this type of thing, and sometimes that can make us like absorb a lot of the external reality too, and absorb other people's conditioning and other people's like way of doing things. And so I've really like cleared a lot of that out, and it's like I gave that all a try. I seen what worked for me, and now I can just like own 100 million% like what I know is for me. That's what I feel like has been my transformation.
Do you feel like that plays a part in like I notice in your videos you talk a lot about like being a rebel and your brand is Rebel Rising. And so where do you think that idea stemmed from for you?
Rebel Rising. Well, I have been doing this for a long time, as we kind of shared, and I've tried a lot of things, and I could never quite nail like my own brand in a way that felt like it honored my entire life story and like where I'm going into the future and be able to like fit all of that. And then I was actually in a mastermind last year, I think, or the year before. I can't even remember now. It's kind of a blur, but in this mastermind, I was doing like peer coaching with some of the people in there, and the rebel sort of persona came up, rebel, and I was like, holy effing shit, how have I like missed this all along? I've always been a rebel. I've always known I'm a rebel. And then I was like, hey, what's like the kind of like action that kind of comes along with this, you know? And it was like rising, we are rising. So that's where Rebel Rising came from. And it just brings me so much joy, to be honest. Like, Yeah.
Yeah, I think what you said there about, I think you said this in your previous answer about feeling that like 100 million% conviction in like you building something that's authentic to yourself. I think that that's a really like underrated talk or topic to talk about in entrepreneurship because I think the first goals that a lot of people have in building their business are monetary. I've seen like people have goals of like when I hit this much, I can leave my job. When I hit this much, I will achieve X. But then you realize, especially like as you start kind of feeling like you're leveling up and you start hanging out with people that have been in business for a long time and have hit a lot of those milestones, you realize how common it is for people to kind of lose themselves in the business and in the pursuit.
Yeah.
So I really resonate with what you said there about feeling that like 100 million% conviction in what you're building and the brand that you're putting out there because I think a lot of people lose that and it becomes more valuable as you build a business because you realize like I thought I just wanted to earn 30K a month, but I'm realizing now I don't want to earn 30K a month if I hate the life I've built around it.
Oh, it's giving me goosebumps. I love everything you just shared. And I think this is such a good piece to add to this whole conversation because I think for myself and even a lot of my clients, like they've obviously been in the game, they have some resources behind them. And at that point, it's like, but like, what am I really here to do? That becomes more important. Like you were saying, it's like, doesn't really matter how much money we make in a month if I'm building the thing that lights my soul on fire that I know I'm supposed to be doing, that is my deeper purpose. Like that's way more fulfilling ever than say having your biggest month ever. Like it will still be amazing to hit this monetary thing, but it's like a high for like I don't know, an hour, a few hours at maximum. And then you come back to reality and you're like, and now it's a new month and we do it all over again, right? But like, what am I doing with my time? And yeah, I'm actually building a course. And this is like the first piece of like, what is your natural rebellion? And then learning to communicate that so that they can always come back to this core piece of themselves and know like what actually matters.
Do you find that like are there any really like common fears that you see come up in a lot of your clients, especially when you are kind of helping them like charge, you know, the premium off or premium prices for their offers? Like what kind of common fears do you see come up in a lot of your clients around like stepping into that authentic self?
They say a lot about imposter syndrome, which is crazy. I guess it's not crazy, but I don't know why every time someone says it, it blows my mind because I just see how amazing they are and how they are the ones that like need to be doing that and charging that and like making that kind of money. So in my mind, I'm like, what? Like this doesn't add up, but I totally get it because like when you are the person that's like walking that walk and like having to face this next like challenge to overcome. It feels big, it feels scary, and it's like risky because, again, all these things we talked about rejection comes in, people pleasing, like other subconscious patterns and loops that we've gotten ourselves into. And so it's like, okay, how can we just like put that all to the side for a second? Remember how freaking amazing you are. It's not even it's not even like worthiness was never a question, like let's just put that even to the side and just like go after that thing because once they feel it once, they're literally never the same because they've done it and they're like, oh, this is actually what happens is they're like, that was easier than I thought it was going to be. And now I see that I could actually charge more. And I'm like, yes. But I just have to like hold them through like that first time. And then something shifts in their brain. They're like, I get it.
So why, I guess like do you feel like that's just a genuine passion and interest for you is like helping people kind of unlock that belief in themselves or what do you think makes you good at coaching people through that?
It is a passion. It is really aligned with my human design as well. I just seem to be really good at it. I don't know. I think it's one of my natural gifts, like partly about this big vision and partly about like in my gene keys it also talks about like how a big part of my life's work is like helping people with like wealth through their relationships and family dynamics. So I feel like this is where a lot of like the trauma healing work comes in, and it all just kind of like rises together. Yeah.
What do you think are some common misconceptions people have about trauma healing?
I was just thinking about this earlier, actually. on the balcony because I've had this like last year to reflect a lot. And, I grew up in a pretty stable household and a loving, unconditionally loving home. And it's like, I still came out with trauma. And I know you were sharing that as well, thinking like, I don't really know if I had trauma in my life. My life's been pretty good, And I think maybe we equate trauma to like these really extreme, like bad and violent things, which of course that is trauma, like assault or like, different things like that. But as I was sharing with you at the table at the cafe that day, I define trauma as just simply like anything that causes your identity to shift. And there's this moment of kind of like dissonance in between because you're like, well, I'm not the person I was, and I'm in the gap of like who I am becoming. So even positive things can cause trauma and negative things also, right? So yeah.
Interesting. I can see that. I think like I only started learning what that really meant like this year, and I've gotten different people's perspectives on it. But I think a lot of people have that perception that, they don't even connect with the idea of doing trauma healing work because they're like, I didn't grow up in an abusive household. I don't think I need that. But then I think when you get into things like building a business and, you go through these personal development journeys, a lot of that kind of self-sabotaging, and I think a lot of it probably comes back to having some kind of trauma that you're carrying and just not aware how to address it.
Yeah, I wasn't getting distracted. I was just pulling up my self mastery method that I created.
Okay.
So there's like all these emotions on the side, and then these are kind of like the little chapters that happen. I'll just explain a little bit about it. So to me, this is like the moment trauma happens at the top. Wait, I can't see what I'm showing you. The moment trauma happens, which is like fear and grief and all of that.
Mm-hmm.
And then you go all the way down the scale back to self mastery at the bottom. So
Nice.
this is basically the human experience mapped. It's like at any given time, you're anywhere on the scale, right? And the goal is to like obviously probably want to be in these more positive ones like forgiveness, acceptance, renewal, or reconnect with self, rebuild and observe, or love, be and grow, or self mastery, right? But sometimes we're like numb, confused, in an identity crisis. Sometimes we're in the blame, denial, remorse, and anger phase. Sometimes then it's like sadness and hurt and pain and loss comes up, right? So these are all these little moments that we have in our human experience. And this is basically how I've mapped trauma and in like a self-mastery lens. Because I think, being in the victim mode is not that fun, but it also could be part of the process, but just for hopefully a short minute. And then you realize you can take your power back and work your way back down the scale, back to empowerment, self-mastery, and love, and all of that.
Okay. Is that like a tool that people can access, or is that something that you work on specifically with your clients?
I mean, I can send this to you if you want to put it in your article or something. It's a big graphic that I made,
Yeah.
my system.
Nice. That's cool.
Yeah.
So when people like when you take on a new client, what does that kind of typically look like? Do you have like a time frame that you often work with people through? It sounds like when people work with you, they kind of get some access to your partner Troy, who's in marketing as well. Like, what does that often look like in terms of the container that you work with your clients in?
So Troy and I used to sort of share client work, but it's all separate now. Like he does his thing, I do my thing, and we just found that works a lot better for us. But in terms of client work, I prefer longer term containers because, like we've been talking about, it's like they're in it for the long haul now. They're really focused on building something great. And I personally don't love like 3-month packages because, like, at that point, things are just getting really good. And then, like, why end it there, right? At minimum, I like 6 months. So I feel like they can really hold at least part of that transformation without me. But I really love, like, some clients I've had for 3+ years, and it honestly just gets better. And we get to quantum leap these results, and I really get to know them. They get to know me. There's this level of trust there. And yeah, we can go so deep and keep building incredible results. So yeah.
Do you find that you have to set boundaries for yourself on how many clients you can take on at one time? Because it sounds like you get like very involved with these clients and you get very invested in their growth.
Yeah, it's true. I do. I really love them and I love their vision and I do get invested. I would say, in my earlier years, it would gut me when like a client we would part ways for a while or forever because I was like I'm again big vision. I'm like, "Oh, I can see like the next layers," and I would be so invested in it and now I know that like that's not healthy for me or them and I have like a lot more detachment in that sense where it's like if you're here, you're here. If you're not my client anymore, I wish you all the best and it's like I just go about my life and I'm not so like consumed or like, obsessed about it,
Mhm.
but it took some time to get there to be honest.
So do you kind of like when you are talking with a potential client and you're thinking like, yes, this actually does seem like a good fit to work together, do you kind of offer them those different offers like, we could do 6 months and then go from there? Or do they kind of sign on for a certain amount of time right at the get-go? Or is it very like, we're going to get to 6 months and revisit? Does that make sense?
Yeah. So it kind of depends on the client and like where they're at when they come to me. Like they all have different needs, right? For some, it's very obvious that they just kind of need like, an injection of truth and clarity and then they're good. So we would agree just do 6 months and we're good. And, if they want to continue after they can. And for some, they know it's like that will just be the starting point and they'll want to continue. But we just like, agree to 6 or 12 months and then talk after that or we'll usually talk before it's even about to end and
Right.
agree on something. Yeah.
Right, right. And ultimately the idea is that they would want to keep working with you because you see the long term, you see the momentum. They're like, why would I stop doing this?
Yeah. So I have new thoughts about this, as I've matured in, in all of this. In the past, like I was saying, yeah, I would get sad and be like, no, there's so much more we can do. But now I realize that like sometimes like the transformation I've just walked with them through is like so great that they do need some breathing time afterwards to just like let it all land and like I said like almost like putting on a shirt like making this all their own and make it feel natural and organic to them and sometimes that breathing room is really healthy and so some people go and come back a few months or even a few years later and some people are just good after that and they got what they needed and that's totally fine too.
Hmm. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So if somebody was interested in like if they watch this interview and they're like, I want to learn more about what she does and what she could do for me, where would you send people who want to learn more about working with you?
My Facebook profile could be good, my YouTube channel. I have an Instagram profile too, but I'm not as active on there, just on stories mostly. I will have my web pages live like in the next month or two, but currently I'm just like rebuilding these new ones that are really fun.
Nice. Okay, cool. And the last thing that I always like to ask people is if you could give one piece of advice to other people who feel like inspired idiots and they're trying to build their unrealistic life, they're just figuring it out, what would you say to those people?
I guess kind of coming back to my biggest transformation recently, it's like if you feel it inside and it's the thing you want to do, just do it. Don't listen to your family members around you or your friends or anyone else. They're going to feel challenged by the fact that you might be changing and that's scary for people. But like if you know inside your heart you really want to do something, whether it's like pick up and move to another country or start a new business or whatever, leave something that you've been doing for a while, like just do it. Like, because you're gonna build a level of trust within yourself and like self respect as well. And at some point, they're gonna come knocking and ask how you did it instead of like calling you crazy. And, I've experienced this in many waves.
Yeah, yeah. I think the way that I've often thought of it is there sometimes in business there's a sense of push and then there's a sense of pull. And often we feel like we're pushing ourselves to sometimes do the hard work or do the work that we feel is building the foundation. But then there's work that pulls you and like you naturally just feel drawn to it. And that's actually what a lot of these conversations are for me.
Mm,
So it sounds like that's kind of along the same lines is like find that thing that you just feel pulled to.
definitely. Tony Robbins talks about that as well. It's amazing. Yeah, follow that pull, trust it. It'll be a fun adventure.
And just trust that you'll figure it out as you go.
Yeah. And like you said at the beginning, it will be messy, but it's all part of it.
Yeah, that's cool. Awesome. Okay, well, I will plug your Facebook in the show notes,
Awesome.
and yeah, I think I'll just go ahead and stop the recording here.
Thank you so much. This has been awesome.